Hey everyone, my name is Carly and today I am bringing you my December and January wrap up because if you didn't notice, I did not do a December wrap up. I kind of was not feeling like filming that kind of video at that time, and I only read 2 books, so I figured I would just group January and December into one so that I had more books to talk about. And then another thing you'll notice is that I don't actually have a lot of the books, or at least physical books, here with me, because quite a few of them were library books and then 3 of them I read on my Kindle, so they are ebooks. So I have a total of 7 books to talk about because I read 2 in December and then 5 in January, which, wow, January came and it was almost this instant like, I just gotta read everything. Well, December was like this, I don't want to read anything sort of thing. So I'm like still within this, like, I just gotta read everything and I love it. But anyway, I just want to talk about these books. So here I go. First book I read and finished in December, and according to my notes, I actually finished this on December 21st. So that tells you how much reading got done in December. This book that I read is a book that is going around very like, there's a lot of discourse around this right now because the movie of it just came out, and it is Call Me by Your Name by Andre Simon, I think. Is that how you say that name? There you go. That's the cover of the one I got. I picked it up because I kind of felt like one of these kind of pretentious stream of conscious kind of books was what I was in the mood for. Anyway, this follows this 17-year-old boy in early 1980s, I think it was, in Italy, and in this book his dad is like a professor, and every summer they host other like professors or people. They let these kind of other professors from around the world stay with them in Italy so they can work on like their books or whatever they're working on while helping out like his dad. And this particular summer he ends up, I don't necessarily want to say falling in love, but he ends up liking the guy that stays with them. His name is Oliver, and the two of them develop a relationship between them. I read 4 out of 5 stars, but honestly I want to say this is more probably about a 3 out of 5 stars. It wasn't bad, I didn't think, and the writing wasn't bad. I just, part of it was that ended up not being quite what I was in the mood for. Another part of it was the ages between these 2 characters. Now, there's an age difference of 7 years between them, which a 7-year age difference doesn't bother me, but the fact that it was between a 17-year-old and a 24-year-old does bother me. I know lots of people love this, lots of people really like this, and I'm not saying you're wrong in that, but I am saying that a relationship between a 17-year-old and a 24-year-old is not something that should necessarily be romanticized. And I think that has a lot to do with my personal feelings, because as someone who, I'm 23, almost 24, and the thought of just like, I mean, if I did like a relationship with a 17-year-old, I'd be in jail. Like, I get it, it's a different country, I get that it's a different time, but besides the kind of legality issues of that kind of sort of that age difference, the just, I think, maturity thing, the maturity difference, because who I am now, I'm completely different than who I was at 17, and I don't know how quite to explain it without it coming out, without it sounding offensive, because I'm not saying it offensively, but you're just in 2 completely different points of your life, and a 24-year-old is going to know a bit more and better, but a bit more than, say, a 17-year-old. And so to pursue a relationship with a 17-year-old is not necessarily it's not a good idea. Yeah, I would have probably liked it more had the relationship been 2 people closer, like maybe a 17-year-old and 18-year-old, or Elio been in his 20s as well. But really, a relationship between a 24-year-old and a 17-year-old was really what made me just kind of uncomfortable while reading this book. All right, the next book I read in December was Wolf by Ryan Garden. There's the cover of it. It's, yeah. This book takes place in an alternate universe where basically Hitler won World War II. And the way it's all kind of split up is that Hitler controls most of Europe, then you've got Japan, who controls kind of, I think, most of Asia, and then America. The reason like Hitler won was because America in this alternate universe decided they were just going to stay out of everything. So America kind of does its own thing. It's not really brought up. Not a huge deal. But, I mean, it's a big deal, but it's not like important to the plot of the story. Anyway, in this world, about every year, there's this big motorbike race that takes place from, I think what was Germany in this world to Tokyo. And these teenagers race on motorbikes from Germany to Tokyo. And it's this huge deal. And the prior year before, a girl had won the race. She had disguised herself as her brother, entered herself as her brother, and then at the very end, when it came out that when she was kind of being crowned the winner, or when she crossed the finish line, she showed herself to be a girl. And the winners of this race, there's a big kind of dance party at the end to celebrate their win. And this year, because a girl won it, Hitler, who is now a paranoid person after having many attempts on his life, he shockingly went and danced with the winner. So the resistance decides that they are gonna they're gonna have another girl enter, take over the identity of the girl that won the previous year, and then she's gonna try to win so that she will be able to dance with Hitler and therefore kill him. That's the plan. I really liked it. I think it really helped kind of get me out of my rut I was in for about November, probably about, was that October, November, December months when it came to reading. I was really intrigued. Like, I just did not want to stop reading this book. I mean, I love history and I love World War II history. And so just like anything to do with World War II history, I am hands down all about. So I just went to my library one day and was like, what should I read? And that was like the first thing that came to mind, which was really random, but I think it was what I kind of needed at that time. I loved it. It was so exciting. It was very simple kind of read, but I just loved it. Like, I was so excited to read it. I'm like, have not read the sequel yet, and I really want to read the sequel. But the relationships between the characters and trying to figure out kind of what had happened, because there's lots of like hints towards stuff that had happened the previous year that I just wanted to know kind of what was happening, what is going to happen to our characters, like how is this race going on, and you do follow them from the start of the race to the end of the race, and then I'm sure the sequel will start after this. But yeah, I gave it like a 5 out of 5 stars. I loved it. It was just one of those kind of fun, fast-paced World War II young adult reads, and I did enjoy that it wasn't super heavy and sad, because I was not in the mood for that. Next book I finished was The Golden Compass by Philip Pullman. If you don't know anything about this follows this girl, Lyra, as she goes on an adventure, I think pretty much to kind of hopefully stop these people from harnessing this power that ultimately like change the world, and they don't think that these people are going to be using it as kind of power for good. I ultimately ended up giving this a 3 out of 5. It was okay for me. It wasn't anything super exciting. I guess not like what I was expecting. I had read this book years and years ago, and I remember I really liked it then, and I read the second book too, and then I never got around to reading the third book because it just never happened to be at the library whenever I went to the library and in school and life, and then yeah, it's been years, and I've been wanting to pick it up again, so I finally did, and it wasn't quite as good as I remember it being, I will say. I found the writing to be I think it was really the writing that didn't sync with me, didn't like mesh well with me. I don't really know how to explain it. It was very like almost to the point, but at the same time not, and then the way everyone kind of talked and interacted with each other felt very like, not robotic, but it was just not really necessarily how I would like feel people would talk with each other. And then like the action sequences, again, just because of how I felt about the writing, they weren't super exciting for me. It was a little bit of a letdown. I think I will continue with the series just because I am curious as to how it ends, because like I said, I've never finished it. Yeah, it wasn't my most, I did not like it as much as I was hoping I would. But my next one, the next book, well, this is the Golden Compass was the first one I finished in January. This next book is the second one I finished in January, and that was The Diviners by Lulu Bray. And oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I don't know anything about this book. It takes place in about 1920s in New York City, and you follow this girl named Edie O'Neill as she is basically forced to move to New York City. Well, I say forced, she really wanted to anyway. Moved to New York City because of a response her parents had to some stuff that happened in her hometown. And she moves to New York City. She's like this total 20s flapper girl, partying, drinking, doesn't give a care in the world, just wants to have some fun. And she moves to New York City to live with her uncle, and her uncle runs this like supernatural museum, and he gets, the police come to him to help with some murders that start happening around New York City, and she ends up helping her uncle with some murders, and just this cast of characters that she meets along the way, they all kind of sort of help to kind of solve the murders that are happening, I should say. And on top of it all, most of these characters have some sort of power. They're called diviners. And so like Evie O'Neill, she can hold stuff and be able to tell you stuff about you, which in turn can be super, like, really deep, dark secrets that you don't want anyone to know. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. That book was huge. I picked it up off the shelf in my library and I was like, I didn't realize this book was so big. Am I actually going to be able to finish it? Oh my god, I could not put it down. I was like, read it, and I didn't want to stop reading it, but I had to stop reading it to go to bed or to work or go to school. And then like, I just read it every chance I got. I was so hooked into like the characters, into the world, into like stories. Like, it's YA, so it's not scary, but there was definitely points and definitely chapters that had me creeped out, which was not what I was expecting, and I liked it. Like, I wasn't like full on scared, but like the way Libra Bray had some with the words and the world building and just everything, I was like totally in this, that like I got creeped out in certain parts, and I enjoyed that because that doesn't usually happen to me, and like when it does, I feel like that's a telling of kind of a great sort of storyteller and such. So yeah, loved it. I have the second book. I've not started it yet, but I can't believe I have not read that sooner. It was so good. And then the next 3 books I read in January were all a series. Got them all here on my Kindle. These were the ebooks that I read this month, and you'll have known some of my feelings. The second 2, I read them for Georgina Reed's 24-hour readathon. And let's see. Well, you'll get to look at some of my more version stuff. But it was the All for the Game series. So that includes the Foxhole Court. Let's see, what we'll do, the Raven King, and All the King's Men. All by Nora Skavik. This is a book series I have heard about for a couple years now from all those like really pretty posts people make for books and movies and characters. I've seen posts for about that, like that, for the series, and I've been intrigued to read it. I just finally just now got around to it, realizing that the first book is free on Amazon Kindle Library. So if you have it and you want to check it out, the first book is free. Obviously this is not sponsored, but I'm just letting you know that first book is free, so there is no harm, no foul, and the app is free. And yeah, so if you want to check it out, that is your very easy way to do it. And then if you like it enough and want to buy the other 2 books, they're only 99 cents for ebooks. Like, cheap, really freaking cheap. Besides the point, I finally picked it up because I saw that I was reading the sample, and then I was like, this book is free. So I was like, heck yeah, I'm getting it. Got it, read it, loved it. The plot of this book is it follows this character, the main character named Neil Johnston, who is on the run from his father, who is known as the Butcher, because he's like works with the mob, I think it was, and is known for butchering people with an axe. That is his thing. And so prior to the first book, Neil and his mom had run away, and at the start of the book, we start with Neil as he's being recruited for this college. And what he's being recruited for is that he plays this made-up sport called XC, and he is getting recruited for this college XC team, in which this team is known to take in people who would say troubles, like they've had troubled lives. Like at the start of this, people think that his parents abused him, basically, and that those kind of people. This is what that team is made up of. So knowing it's a stupid idea to sign with them, he still ends up signing with them, and it really follows, these 3 books really follow him on his first year on this team, and all the like crazy kind of outlandish stuff that happens to them. Yeah, I loved it. I gave the first book a 4 out of 5 stars. The second and third book I gave 4.5 out of 5 stars for both of those. I think this really sums up how I feel about these, because I write down my thoughts on this afterwards, but I said I really love seeing how much the characters, this is after I finished the third book, so this really ties in for all 3 books, but I said I really love seeing how much the characters grew themselves and how their relationships all grew with each other, and how ultimately that's what this and like the whole books in the series had been about, despite the freaking crazy and honestly kind of outlandish things that happened in this book. Because as the books go on, they just like, the more you know about the past of like everyone, the more crazy stuff that like ends up happening. And like I understand why it was in there, but at the same time it kind of felt a little out of place and like over dramatic. But I mean, ultimately these books were, I felt what I got from these books was that they were about these characters growing from their past and kind of getting over themselves and like growing with their relationships with each other. Like I loved how much growth was done by the characters themselves and their relationships with each other. I will put in a strong trigger warning for sexual assault and rape for the, definitely that second one. Oh, you know what, we're just gonna go non-consensual rape, sexual stuff for like all those books, because there's some stuff that happens in really kind of the first 2, definitely the second one. So if that's not really a thing, or you have triggers for that, I would say be safe going into these books. But I will also say that I did enjoy how a character's traumatic experience with rape was handled and how other characters responded to that. Because as I mentioned before, one of my issues with like A Study in Charlotte was how her no touching rule and her kind of sexual assault and rape was used in the story, and I didn't like how it was done because it was totally kind of forgotten until like a plot point was needed. While in this book, I don't want to give away I guess one of the relationships, but one of the characters like does not like to be touched because he had been raped, and it's implied that this had happened quite a bit, and he had a thing about touching, like he just did not like to be touched, which yeah. And then he starts a relationship with another character, and this other character totally, completely, 100% respects that. Like when they're kissing and everything, especially when they first start, he resists any and all urges to touch this other character. And then at one point he does go to the character and he's like, where is it okay for you to touch? And then this character kind of starts like, you can, well, he doesn't say anything, but while they're kissing, he'll be like, he'll move his hands to like his head, and so the other character knows that that is okay place for him to touch, and like he does not deviate from there. He does not try to do anything. He does not push this victim to do anything more than he's willing to go, and I really kind of appreciated that of it. I think someone in a comment, I was reading reviews on Goodreads for one of these books, and they didn't give a very good rating to it, but they said it was like Gossip Girl with guys, and a little, but I was still hooked with all the characters and with like this team. And yeah, I mean, ultimately, like I said, what I mostly took away and what I mostly loved about these books was just the characters themselves and the growth they have through all 3 books, and the relationships with them. How you start out with this very fractured group of people, and by the end of it, they're still fractured, but they are so much whole compared to when they first started, and the growth, I loved it. It was so good. Those are the books I read for December and January. For most of these, I definitely highly recommend you check them out. For most of them. January was such a great reading month that I'm totally like, forget about December's reading month, like honestly. Those are the books I read in December, January. It was such a great reading month. I'm like excited to see how February will go, because again, like I said, I'm just like reading a fiend right now and I love it. But yeah. Have you read any of those? What did you read? I ask that all the time. Thank you for watching. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. I hope your Decembers and Januarys were great. I hope your February will be even better. And I will see you guys again with another video soon. Bye. Hey, no, no, no.